We're back with Green Mountain Mornings on WKVT 100.3 FM, AM 1490, Brattleboro's news talk station. 23 past the hour, and I am your host, Olga Peters. And I want to welcome back to the show Randy Holhut from the Commons. Hello, Randy.
Hello again, Olga. Hello again, everybody. Hello again, Joyce.
Hello again, Joyce. And also for everyone's listening pleasure or viewing pleasure, this segment is being filmed by Brattleboro Community Television. It will be online later today at brattleboro.tv, and broadcast of Green Mountain Mornings tonight is sponsored by Brattleboro Savings and Loan. So, Randy, I want to start with something from the Voices section in the Commons about a letter from Curtis Reed Jr. about a mural in Burlington. And why should we, down here in the Forgotten Kingdom, care about what's happening with the mural in Burlington?
Well, the mural in Burlington happens to be on Church Street Marketplace, which is one of the busier sections of the city. Mm-hmm. And it covers an awful lot of wall space. So something in a nice, prominent place in Vermont's largest city, gives you a mural of history that's missing a few things. And it's not just as Curtis looked, looking at the mural and saying, "Where are my people? Where are the Black Vermonters?" Mm-hmm. The Abenaki and other First Nations people are also looking at the mural and saying, "Where are my people too?"
Right.
And why does the history start when Champlain comes to town? I think there was kind of a Vermont here before he came sailing down the Lake Champlain.
Mm-hmm. Probably had a different name at that point too.
Yes, so whatever the First Nations name for the big lake was, but it's just kind of an oversight that you don't think about until you think about it. If you don't know what you're looking at or what's missing from what you're looking at, you don't know that it's missing something. And I think, even though you could say, well, it's really a commercial mural, and because there's logos for various stores and businesses in in Burlington, so it's really, what's the big deal? And the big deal is that it's kind of a subtle example of white supremacy, as Curtis writes. Saying that it's led many Vermont business owners, I'm quoting Curtis here, to believe that consumers of color are either non-existent or not worth the advertising dollars. The sins of omission and misrepresentation evoke a powerful, visceral, negative response. And sometimes that visceral response leads one to believe that every white person, without exception, holds malicious intent. In other words, you start jumping to the next conclusion that maybe there is something going on here rather than the usual, well, we didn't know. And that's probably the defense that the mural person would take. I didn't know. So, things like that happen. And, people are going to point that out when it does happen.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I hope the folks behind the mural take it as, or not just the mural, whoever commissioned the mural, take it as an opportunity.
Because we're getting more and more of these opportunities as we go along. It's kind of a reaction to this era we live in, where the dog whistle no longer exists, and people feel empowered to openly flaunt their bigotry.
Yeah. Well, maybe that, too, is the opportunity. Now we get to really root it out.
One might hope.
One might hope. In the last few minutes before we go to the break, we should remind listeners about an upcoming candidates forum.
Yes, the Commons and BCTV will be teaming up for a Selectboard candidates forum. It's going to be on Wednesday, February 21st at 6 p.m., live from the BCTV studios at the Municipal Center. We're going to have the three-year candidate for Selectboard, Brandy Starr, and
I'm glad you're tackling this because I would desiccate
two of
it
the
as
three
well.
candidates for the 1-year seat. So the incumbent Tim Wessel won the challengers, Shanta Lee Gander, and unfortunately, the last challenger, Bill Fortune, will be out of town next week, but he'll be taping his opening statement, and we'll be trying to filter in some of his recorded thoughts on things and questions we've come up with.
Oh, great.
So he may not be here, but he'll be here as much as we can virtually recreate him.
Oh, that's wonderful. So he can still participate. Yes, I interviewed both Bill and Shanta this week and hope to interview Brandy and Tim in the coming weeks. So you can find those interviews up on our, what is it called? Website.
Yes.
WKVTradio.com, or on our SoundCloud page, which if you search WKVT Radio, it should also come up.
So we will be taking questions via Facebook Live, as well as for the 3x5 note cards, and from the few people who will be able to cram themselves into the BCV TV studio. But Brandy has it easy; she's unopposed. The other candidates should make for a lively evening, and our third panelist will be Ann Braden.
Yes,
the late of Gun Sense Vermont. Still a community activist, and for me, it's great to be with two fabulous women to make this thing really go.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I always like these candidate forums. I just think there's a lot of great information that can get shared, but also I love the public input because, of course, people will think of questions that we haven't, and like I said, I'm looking forward to it. So that's February 21st, correct?
That is correct. 6 to 7:30, live on BCTV, streaming live on BrattleBoroTV.org. And it'll be terrifying to do it, but useful.
So I hope people tune into that on February 21st. Randy and I will return after the break. We are back with Green Mountain Mornings on WKVT 100.3 FM, AM 1490, Brattleboro's News Talk Station. 38 past the hour, and I'm your host, Olga Peters. Welcome back to my guest, Randy Holhut, Deputy Editor at The Commons. Thank you, Randy.
Good morning again.
And let's start out talking about solar and alternative energy up at the Windham Solid Waste Management District.
A very good development.
And you were saying that the 5 megawatt solar project construction has started on that, correct?
Yes. Since the weather's been good enough to do that for the most part, but this is going to be one of the biggest solar projects in southern Vermont, and there was no shortage of customers signing up to take the energy from it. Mm-hmm. And you think of places to put something that large that will generate that much electricity. The landfill is probably the most ideal site you can find for it. I mean, it's flat, gets lots of sun, and it's shielded from view from just about everything.
Well, and because it's a closed landfill, it's not like you're going to plant crops on it or something. It's not land that will get used for something else.
And that's why the emphasis has been on trying to take these capped landfills around the state and throw solar farms on top of them. Mm-hmm. It's a perfect reuse of the land. And if you're in a good spot like the like the Brattleboro landfill is, where it's close to the main transmission lines, and that it's easy enough to hook into the grid and put that power into the grid.
And the Wyndham Solid Waste Management District just got another bit of good news. Just for a little bit of history and context for those who may or may not know this, the management district has been using for quite a few years methane gas from the landfill and repurposing it to help run its facility. Well, over the past few years, as everything in the landfill decomposes, and the methane gas, the amount has decreased. And so they're not getting as much gas from it anymore. Well, they just received money from the Windham County Renewable Energy Program, which is part of that Entergy Vermont, State of Vermont agreement for renewable energy and economic development. They just received funds for their Integrated Resource Recycling Center anaerobic digester, which would be a 300 kilowatt food waste anaerobic digester facility, and that will take food waste and supplement the declining biogas production of the existing landfill to use at the district. So that's kind of exciting.
That's very exciting, because now we know that you don't need, it's not just cow poop that you can use to make energy.
Yes, you can use banana peels.
That you can use food scraps too.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the what's left over becomes compost.
Right. Soil for gardens.
Yeah, so and the district already has a rather vigorous composting operation right now.
Mm-hmm.
So these are all little things that can help keep the district going a little bit longer. After Brattleboro blew it up.
Right, and they are still scrambling.
Well,
after
I still miss
fallout.
having the rollover boxes down the center of Dummerston.
Oh,
I'm
do
sure
too.
I'm not the only one who misses having those rollover boxes in their town centers.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I miss those roll-off. As a Dummerston resident, I also miss those boxes. Yeah. Yeah, and I know we can just drive to the district and do it there, but it was more convenient in the center of downtown.
Well, that and just their limited hours and having to deal with even different disposal methods. That's just completely different now.
Right, the single stream rather than separating things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, it will. I'm looking forward to hearing how, especially this anaerobic digester goes, because I know Bob Spencer, who heads up the district as executive director, has been working on this for a while.
Yeah, and the idea is to try and put less material into landfills.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can do something like this, where you can take stuff that would end up in the landfill, and be able to turn it into energy and useful soil supplement,
Mm-hmm.
that's a great thing.
Yeah. Talking about, well, no, I have no segue. We're just going to dive right in.
Well, talking about food waste and Bachelor, that kind of is equal.
There you go. So Joyce did,
Except you can't fertilize your garden with cheese.
or wine. So Joyce did a fun piece in the comments this week about The Bachelor, the TV show, coming to town and filming a segment at Fire Arts Vermont, which is the co-production of Natalie and Randy. So
Yes,
tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, they've been going great down there on Route 30, Randy Solon and Natalie Blake, with their glass blowing and ceramic studio and gallery.
It's a beautiful
And
place.
Really cool place.
Yeah.
But The Bachelor was kind of looking for a special program for the counter-programming the Winter Olympics, as if the people who'd watch figure skating would drop everything to watch The Bachelor instead.
Right. Or vice versa.
So they decided to come to Vermont to try and do some filming. the producers of The Bachelor, and we were looking for sites for things to do, and so they spent time over in Manchester and Wilmington, and somebody told them that, hey, there's this really cool place in Brattleboro that does glass blowing and pottery and ceramic stuff, and hey, why don't we try filming there? So they contacted the two and set up the time, and they snuck in there, and no one really knew about this.
No,
they were
kept
there.
it under lock and key because it's part of the competition. It was one of the dates with The Bachelor and one of the competitors, right?
Yeah. But also just there's no such thing as a quiet shoot, especially when you get 20 white trucks suddenly popping up into your parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess they started at 2 in the afternoon. They finished in 2 in the morning. They just and shot the segment, and the two are sworn to secrecy until about what happened until it shows up in the television next week.
The 20th, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So they'll be having a viewing party there on next Tuesday, the 20th. So you can have some finger food and watch the silliness unfold in real time.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess from at least from what we were talking about off the air, and I didn't think of this, was that aside from the cheesiness of The Bachelor, which is undeniable, I mean, like a warehouse full of Grafton 3-year-old cheesy, but that this also provides a lot of work for local filmmakers, and the film industry in Vermont needs any boost it can get. And you're saying that some of your friends were in the film industry were involved in this.
That's correct. I think in this case, most of the crew for this film shoot they shipped them in from Hollywood. But as many of you probably know, if you've been following ITV Fest and some of the work by Phil Gilpin, he's been working, and ITV Fest has been working for quite a few years to strengthen the Vermont film industry, because whether we realize it or not, there's a lot of folks who work in the industry kind of buried up in the hills of Vermont, and there's a lot of animators, there's a lot of editors, people who can work remotely, who prefer to live in this area and then ship their work back to Hollywood. Well, one thing that has grown out of ITV Fest and many of the collaborations that have grown there is something called the Vermont Production Council. And that was one of the organizations that helped bring The Bachelor first to Manchester, and then, of course, they came over to the Deerfield Valley and Brattleboro. And so the Vermont Production Council is kind of what Vermont's film office should have been. And it's it has a number of different aspects to it. It does have some people who can do marketing and imaging and things like that, but it also has kind of that network aspect to it as well, and it actively seeks film productions to bring them to Vermont and have them work in the area. Because when a film production comes to town, it's not just about the crew that gets hired. While that's wonderful, folks also shop in the local stores, they eat in the local restaurant, they stay in the local hotels. And so it can be a bit of an economic boon to an area.
Not to mention the obvious one of Randy and Natalie getting on national television and maybe getting a few curious people wanting to come to Brattleboro to check them out. Exactly.
Yeah, big Bachelor fans, I think Natalie was saying in Joyce's article, will actually travel to the locations that the show has been filmed at. And so that's one of the hopes, is that this will also be a little bit of a tourist draw. Who knew?
Who knew?
Reality TV. So be catching the episode on the 20th?
I think Joyce will probably be watching the Olympics.
But
maybe out of morbid curiosity she might.
Well, you want to see Natalie and Randy.
I always want to see Randy and Natalie. Doesn't everyone?
They should, if they don't.
Well, Well, we admire those two because they've put a lot of their heart, soul, and everything else into the business of trying to get a arts business going in Brattleboro, and they've done more than most and suffered more than most before they finally got what they've always wanted, which is a space of their own to create and grow. And
Right.
they're more than just pretty faces. They're a great example of Vermont entrepreneurship in action.
Yeah, and they're also a really great example of entrepreneurship in the arts.
Yes. That sometimes you can't wait for the grant to come. You just got to get off your butt and do it.
Yep. Now, the place on Route 30, was that, because they tried, like you said, for quite a few years to find a home base. And was that like spot number 3 for them?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
I mean, they were first going to try the old Santa Auto Parts building
On Flat Street, yep.
on Flat Street, and they lost out on that in literally the 59th minute.
Oh, I remember that, yeah.
And then they were going to move into the old archery building, but next to the train station, and that turned out to be a financial albatross if anyone wanted to move in there, because the town's demands. So that's
Right.
why it's still empty. And then the Tom and Sally building came up.
Right. And they actually share that with Saxon Rivers Distillery, correct?
Yes, you can make your own shot glass at Randy's if you want.
Hey, yes, go to, because people should know that Randy and Natalie offer classes and short workshops at their studio. So, yes, you could make your own shot glass and then head next door. I don't know. That sounds okay to me.
Well, there's a lot of great great examples of their work in that gallery of theirs, and chances for you to try and create your own.
Well, on that note, Mr. Randy Holhut, always a pleasure. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.